Hey guys, so now that American Horror Story is over, we can focus on more reviews, more content. Like I said in the last video, I have some really cool stuff coming up, but I thought we would do a regular old review today. I tried to make this one a little bit more structured and wrote down an outline, so you tell me how this video goes. You know, leave your feedback down below. Also, I cut off 6 inches of my hair, so that's what we're working with today. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about Gerald's Game, which is a movie adapted from a Stephen King book by the same name. I have not read the book personally, so that's probably one negative to this review is I cannot compare it to the book, but if you've read the book and seen the movie, please leave your thoughts, especially down below. So this is listed online as a drama, thriller, or psychological thriller, and a horror, which I think that this movie is very much a more subtle horror and definitely psychological. So it's effective, but it's subtle. So I think if you're a beginner, there are moments, definitely, in this movie, which I'll get into, but overall I feel like it's not too horrifying, you know what I'm saying? So the simple basic description of this movie is that a couple escapes to a secluded lake house to revive their sex life, and while acting out Gerald's fantasy, hence the name Gerald's Game, something happens to him, and now Jessie, his wife, is handcuffed to the bed and she's stranded. The plot is super simple, and the storyline does take a lot of complex turns for sure, but overall this is a very simple kind of movie. This is directed and written by Mike Flanagan, who also was the writer and editor of Hush, Ouija, Origin of Evil, and Oculus. The headboard in this movie is actually the lower part of the looking glass in Oculus, and then the book that Jessie throws at one point in the movie is actually written by the main character in the movie Hush. So not only are there lots of references to Mike's other work, but there's a lot of references to Stephen King books. Stephen King does like to do that, where he references throughout his stories to different stories, and that, you know, continues into his movies a lot. It references books like Cujo, Dolores Claiborne, Bag of Bones, The Shining, and the Dark Tower series, so we got lots of references, which if you're a true Stephen King fan, you'll notice most of them. Some of them are a little bit more subtle and could be argued that they're not references, but some are definitely black and white. That is another Stephen King book that they're talking about. I also love that they kept the Stephen King vibe throughout this movie. If you've ever watched a Stephen King book adaptation to movie, you know that there's like a certain aura, and you get that with his books as well, obviously. So I like that they kept that aura of the film, and it definitely feels like a Stephen King movie. And although I didn't read the book, it does feel like they literally just translated one of his books to the screen. So most of the movie, like I said before, it's a simple movie, and most of the movie takes place in the same bedroom, same location, and pretty much the same scenery the whole movie. So it really relies on atmosphere to get the job done. I think they did an amazing job making this film feel really intense, and they did so with barely any soundtrack. There's hardly any music that plays at all throughout this film. So we're in the same scenery with no music, and it still feels tense in a way, and like you feel bad for her, you feel like her struggle, and it's amazing how they executed that. So regardless of how you feel about the movie, whether you like it or not, you kind of have to appreciate that they did that so well, and that shows true talent in my opinion. Overall, I was really impressed with this film. I wasn't so much in the beginning, but when things started to get a little weird, I was kind of taken aback and wasn't that into it anymore. But watching it as a whole, I definitely love this movie. It was just done so well. Now I will go into a little bit of spoilers and what I thought about the rest of the film right now, so if you haven't seen it, do not watch it. Also, I'm gonna give you a trigger warning for sexual assault right now as well, because that is in the film also, so if you are triggered by that, of someone talking about it, I'm not gonna go into depth or anything, but I will mention it because it's in the movie and it's a big part of the movie. So I will obviously talk about that side of the movie, so if you're, you know, affected by that, please do not watch this part of the film. Part of the video, not a film. This isn't a film. So I'll start with that first. This is a very deep movie. I know I said before it's a very simple movie, and what I mean by that is cinematography, scenery, you know, soundtrack, all that is so simple. But the storyline, I mean, the story's pretty simple as well, except when we go deeper into her backstory, Jessie's character, and what she has struggled with throughout her life. It's very jarring and heartbreaking watching this happen, and it's so sad. Basically, she's been manipulated her whole life by men, And there is a specific scene where she is abused by her dad, and that is horrendous. And it obviously reminds me of the scene from Dolores Claiborne, and there's a straight reference to Dolores Claiborne in this movie as well when she's talking about looking up and seeing a woman standing over. That is Dolores Claiborne, who is played by the one and only Kathy Bates. I don't think I've ever reviewed that because it is more psychological than horror, but if you want me to talk about that, I can. So that scene happens, but what I think is almost even more disturbing, if that's even possible, is the scene after when he confronts her and says, you know, well, we have to tell your mom today, like right when she gets back. But I don't think she'll think it's your fault. I think, you know, she won't be that mad. The manipulation that is written, I mean, oh my God, I was like, I have no words. Like, that scene was so disturbing, watching her be manipulated by her dad in order to keep this a secret for her whole life. And obviously she still deals with it, and there's, you know, talk about her marrying this older guy, Gerald, because of that reason. Like, she's kind of dealing with all of her demons while she's handcuffed and almost basically dying on this bed. So her husband is laying dead on the ground from a heart attack. There's a dog eating him. There's a lot of psychological aspects to this movie that aren't that horror, but they are horror, but more psychological than gruesome or anything like that. Of course there's some gore in there too, but that's a given. And then we have the man that enters the room, and that's when you're kind of like, is this fantasy? Is this, you know, supernatural in some way, or is this real? You found out it's actually real, and that takes a really weird turn, and I actually wasn't too happy with how it ended, honestly. But I do appreciate that she comes out on the other side being a strong woman who ain't gonna be manipulated by any more men in her life, I'll tell you. So those are my overall thoughts on this movie. Let me know what you thought about this film down below. I would give it probably an 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. I don't know if I should do formal ratings. Don't take my word for that either. Just, you know, we're just kind of chatting right now. I talked about most of the stuff in the beginning. I would watch this movie again though, and I would own it. I think just the psychological aspect of it was so well executed and really amazing. So let me know what your thoughts are on Gerald's Game down below, and any other movie requests that you want me to talk about down below, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.